This episode is proudly supported by Pepe Sayer Australian Cultured Butter.
The Pepe Sayer all new Australian butter sheets. Everything we've learned over the last 12 years, we've put into making this new butter sheet. Combined with a brand spanking new shiny machine from Switzerland, we're able now to produce this beautiful butter sheet that's so easy to laminate with. So it's pliable, it's very fresh. If you're an Australian baker buying our butter sheets, they're made weekly. The formulation, it's a beautiful unsalted butter that will work for savoury and sweet. I think it's a perfect balance there. The bakers and pastry chefs that are using it are just raving about it.
For more information, go to pepesayer.com.au.
I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
We give everything to our customers. We're not hiding anything. We're not being, money driven or ego driven. It's like it's all for you. It's all there. It's up for grab.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Xavier Vigier has earned a reputation for knowing his stuff. The acclaimed sommelier has dominated wine lists across the country and is now reinventing how we experience wine at Circl Wine House, located on Punch Lane in Melbourne CBD. Xavier, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Shanteh. Thank you for having me today. What a pleasure.
It is a pleasure, and just hearing your gorgeous accent just makes me thrill. We probably should start there. Where did you grow up, Xavier?
So originally from France, I was born in Paris and lived my childhood in Paris with my family. It's kind of a classic French upbringing. We grew up with food and wine, and then at the age of 11 years old, my mom and my brother and I moved to the south of France in Marseille. It's a really lovely, gorgeous city based in Provence. It's actually the second largest city in France. Generally over there, the sun shines all year round compared to Paris. So I grew up there as a young kid, did my normal studies, ended up in Montpellier, which is probably about 3 hours driving from Marseille. And I had studied international trade. And at the end of my studies, I decided to go to London to pursue my career in this field. And unfortunately, I ended up in London in the middle of the GFC, so couldn't find any job. So, I went back to hospitality because I thought it would be a great place for me to grow in London, and keep earning the money that I needed to survive. London is very expensive. So, and so I ended up in hospitality pretty much by coincidence, if I may say, and I never looked back. It's kind of like I met so many people in London through hospitality, and it's a bit of a ambling exercise. You think you know a lot, and then you get thrown in different situations with a lot of pressure, with a lot of expectations. So, I enjoyed my time in London for about 3 years. And funny enough, when I was in London, I was living with Australian people, and I literally fell in love with them, and so much that it inspired me to go and Google at the time Australia to see what was it all about, because the people that I was living with were so down to earth, so special in their own way, and I really enjoy living with them. So when I Googled it, I actually saw all these beautiful beaches, and I thought to myself, it would be great to have a bit of a break from the city and just go on holiday for a little while, And so I ended up taking a visa for it, and I went back to France for about 6 months just to spend some time with my family before traveling overseas. And I landed in Australia in 2013, and I landed in Sydney, and I thought to myself, before I was like, I'm excited, going to go to the beach. And I ended up in the middle of CBD, and the CBD was pumping with people and it was busy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting this, you know? So I ended up in a hostel. And after 2 days, I was getting a bit bored, you know? So I said to myself, I better look for a job. And I found a job as a waiter, you know, and probably not in the greatest restaurant. So I stayed there for about a week. And then I ended up in Gastro Park with Grand King at the time. And it was pretty full on exercise with him. Very passionate person. And then I spent about 5 months there, and then ended up in Maryvale, which was my first big gig in Australia. And I never looked back since then.
Wow, what a ride. I mean, first off, I'm thrilled that you spent some time with some nice people in London that were Australian, because, you know, if they weren't very nice, they could have, your future could have been very different.
Absolutely.
I want to first know, I mean, being that you kind of were in Paris and then you moved down to Marseille, and we're going, right back to the start of your story, but Marseille is perhaps one of the places, or Provence more particularly, that people talk about in their travels when they talk about kind of a cultural wine experience. I think more than anywhere else in the world, people talk about drinking rosé and being in Provence. Did you notice that? Was that significant when you were down there, that people drank outdoors and everyone had rosé in their hands? Or is that a myth?
No, it's not a myth. It's actually pretty bang on. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when it's always sunny outside and you always have clear sky because you got lots of different winds, and then people spend their time in terraces. And I think the first thing that people drink is rosé. You know, you're on the terrace with lots of ice in a glass. And yes, but it's not only about wine. You know, it's also about the food. You know, we are located on the Mediterranean coast, you know, beautiful waters, lots of different fish, and a strong culture in food and wine. So it takes a center stage in the life of people. Excuse me. And so the whole idea is you know, you have plenty of vineyards located on the coastline, just embracing the winds and the Mediterranean Sea. So it's all about the outdoors. It's all about the joie de vivre, if I may say. Sometimes I'm wondering if people spend more time drinking than working, but that's part of life, you know. And there's a really a specific lifestyle in Marseille, which is not seen anywhere in France. You know, and in fact, a lot of people from the north been moving down to the south. You know, I also hear a lot of people that travel to Marseille that they felt quite unsafe, and so it is pretty. It's a city of extremes. You know, you have a lot of wealthy people and a lot of people that are struggling to make ends meet. And you know, I love the different cultures that you live with when you are in Marseille, because it's a port city, and a port city always has attracted many different waves of immigration. And nowadays it's you know, it's rich of history, it's rich of different culture, it's rich of different flavors. And I mean, there's a bit of culture shock for people coming from overseas, because it is full on. People are full on. They've got lots of personality. People are screaming. You know, it's kind of like people are living their life as if it was their last day. That's pretty much the way how I took out of Marseille. And you know, you can definitely do a good life in Marseille, but for a young person trying to make a career out of Marseille, sometimes it can be pretty hard, because you don't have the same sort of opportunities that you would get in larger cities where the economy is pretty up.
Yeah, I can see that, especially with international trade and something like that you wanted to do. You know, moving to a bit more of a Mecca city makes sense. But the way you've described Marseille, you know, it's on my bucket list to go have a fish stew and have some rosé. And you certainly painted a beautiful picture. Tell me a little bit about, you know, when you moved to London and you again picked up hospitality. Was there a culture shock from what you experienced in hospitality in France to what you saw in London?
Very much so. I mean, London is, I mean, UK overall is so close to France, but so far away from a tradition and from a culture perspective, and I think London was a bit of a shock to me because there were a lot of professionals in the industry, where in Marseille, especially, it's a bit more relaxed hospitality. You kind of take your time. You're a bit laid back. In London, it's extremely professional, so you have to pick up the pace pretty fast, and you have a lot of big companies over there, so they have their system in place and all sort of things. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was a shock, but I would say it was a bit of a wake up call as to like, yeah, it is a career path for the majority of people working in this industry, and at the time I felt very grateful for being part of that community, and I embraced every single challenges that came my way, from a language perspective to the way how we work, to the amount of expectation, to the wealth as well. London, it's relatively people are drinking great wines and they like to go out. So yeah, a bit of a wake up call, I'd say, and a lot of learning along the way.
I think it's always good to have that moment where you're put back in your place and you realize you're perhaps not the tallest poppy in the room, and you like you said, you need to pull your socks up and really get motivated and get busy, like you said. I think that's great. You then, when you did land on our shores in Australia, you gave yourself 2 days of relaxing and then you started looking for a job. I think it's pretty amazing that your first little call was at Gastro Park. My husband used to work with Grant King and has some fabulous stories about, like you said, his passion and his personality. How did you find working with him?
I really enjoyed it. Like, he has a strong personality. So I think the major thing was not to take anything personally, and just embracing it as it was. I think we have to respect people's craft, and you enter a restaurant, and especially when a chef owns the restaurant, you have to respect the space. And yeah, it was hard every single day. But I guess we only grow in places that we feel uncomfortable. And I am very grateful for the experience, because the menu that, the food that he was creating was out of his world, from my eyes at least, and it was really full on. Each service was definitely I would say a roller coaster of emotions, and and even guests loved that. Like the guests absolutely loved their experience. So yeah, it was tucked away, in the middle of, like, in a little street, and you wouldn't think anything if you're just passing by, and then you enter this world, and it's someone that has spent many years, excelling his craft, and that was his thing, that was his life, and I respect that a lot. All the rest is just little details, if I'd say.
You've summed that up really well. Tell me a bit about when you thought, okay, it's the wine, or the kind of service part that's really attracting you. Was there a definite moment where you decided that wine was going to be, your calling, as opposed to, management or back a house? When did that moment happen?
So, I've had the opportunity in Australia to work in a few places, and I think the trigger pretty much was at Ormeggio, at the Spit, the beautiful Italian restaurant located at the Spit Bridge. You're overlooking the water, and I was working as a section waiter over there, and Luc Collard used to be the head sommelier, and I remember, it was all set menu and everything, and I, at some point I started to take a bit of wine orders, and I just loved the extra experience, that you had whilst talking to the guests, working on the wines, and there was just another dimension that I had never really looked when I was working in hospitality before, and Luc could, definitely saw my passion growing, and he told me, like, you should, if you're really into it, you should really start WSET. It's a great way to to start learning about wine. And he was teaching WSET at the time, so I was like, okay, let's do it. So I did level 2 with him, and I from that moment I never looked back. I thought, what a world of wine. Like, it's crazy. Like, you have so many different aspects of wine that is so thrilling. Not only from a guest perspective, but all the knowledge that goes around it. So yeah, I think WSET allowed me to understand whether it was for me or not, and that was definitely the trigger. And Luke really allowed me to discover that world, by letting me also take a few orders. Sometimes you work with sommelier that don't want anyone else to touch the table. He was pretty relaxed with it. So I felt confident. I felt empowered. You know what I mean?
That's a wonderful word to say, and a wonderful way to feel, because I think it is scary at the start when the world of wine is so big. Tell me, with how accomplished you are now, it's hard to imagine you in your early days. Do you have any stories or moments where, you feel like you made a mistake, or you got something completely wrong and you were really kind of scared or nervous?
Oh, there are plenty of moments like that. Yeah, from the moment that you're pouring the wrong wine on the wrong glass, or you're trying to decant the wine and it spill out, or you're opening a bottle and the cork breaks. But it's at the moment it is very scary, and your heart starts beating at 150 beat per minute. But then it's all part of learning curve. And I mean, when you look back at it nowadays, it forges you as who you are, and everyone makes mistakes. Everyone, I've been in places where, someone is asking me for a specific style of wine. And at the time when I was really young, in my early days as a sommelier, I was pushing sales. I was pushing wines to people, and I'll get it wrong and people wouldn't like it. And I will feel absolutely ashamed by that deep down, and because a bit of ego as well, you want to be selling that great bottle of wine, and you're not listening to what people want. So that happened a few times, but yeah, I think the scary part is really to mess up. I've had a moment where I just spilled a major it happens, where you spill the wine on the tablecloth, and then you see all these red dots everywhere, and you're like, you becoming all red and all ashamed, and then you have to go and hide at the back because you're like, oh my God, I can do. And then you have your good manager around you that's really supporting you and fixing the issue with you. So yeah, I think, definitely, plenty of moments like that,
I think it's nice to hear them, because once you become a certain level and you can open a bottle almost blindfolded, decant it, not spill a drop, you do it in your sleep. It's good to reflect on moments like this for the upcoming somms that are scared and nervous during service. And I just remember, I think it's important to remember those moments that have kind of happened to all of us. Tell me a little bit about how you've kind of worked your way up as a sommelier, and in terms of progressing your career through the ranks. With each new place, did you attempt to gain another kind of level and position?
Well, I worked at our major. At some point after that, I left. I worked at Monopole for Nikki the brand, and I was very young in my early days, and I was just like embracing everything. And the wine list was really special, so I was just being a somm, and knowing that I was in my early days. So never had any expectation on anything else, but just working on the floor and give people what they want. I kind of like grew in the industry quite organically. I never really chased any sort of position or anything. I just think that I was there at the right time, at the right place, and probably people with whom I was working with saw in me probably a bit of light, and I had the chance, really the opportunity, and I'm so grateful for it, for people trusting me in it. So pretty much I worked at Monopole and Bentley for a little while, for about a year and a half, and then moved to Maryvale. I was just being a som, and I've learned so much from their systems, the way how they were doing things. I've sold probably some of the greatest bottles of wine, in my career when I was working at Felix, and I was really happy to be just a som, and then I moved to Catalina, and after a few months, Andy realized that there was probably some potential with me, so he offered me the position as a head sommelier, and I took it with open arms, and I'm very grateful for everything that came my way. So I embraced it and I went for it. I was extremely fearful. There was a lot of doubt. Can I do it? Can I not do it? But it's kind of like it's now or never. It's and I did it, and I did it so naturally, and I did it with everything that I am, and there was no hidden, no trying to pretend to be someone I wasn't. And it was a great learning curve, and that's, writing wine list and, talking to suppliers and go and chase those wines. And, at early stage already at Catalina, I was being quite adventurous with the wine by the glass, and I had started a program of Coravin at the time, and I was pouring those beautiful wines, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I fell in love with obviously the creative part of creating a wine list, and I think at the time probably I wasn't so great, or at least I didn't have the experience of people's management and all of that. So, you always learn along the way with the people that you're working with. So I did Catalina for about a year and a half. And then after that, I went back to Maryvale and really enjoyed just being a sommelier at Felix and Mr. Wong, and honestly, Felix was pretty much just an opportunity for me to solidify my love for fine wines and for people as well. Like, I was getting a lot of good feedback around my service and the way I was managing a relationship with customers, and I think I really how do you call that, took a lot of self-confidence whilst working for those big restaurants, and I think the idea of moving a little bit around was for me to discover different styles of working, working from fine dining with a set menu, working in casual environments, working in bistro, working in Mr. Wong where you have like 20 tables in your section, and you need to learn how to prioritize. So I've learned a lot of skills along the way by the way of me moving around, and I'm super grateful again as of today because all of these experiences in a different sort of settings allowed me to understand who I am nowadays. So fast forward to 2019, I had the opportunity to work for 10 Minutes by Tractor, and at the time I had a few different options up my sleeves, and there was a great way for me to move in Victoria. I've never done Victoria before, never lived in Melbourne, never lived in Mornington Peninsula, and the idea of working in a wine region was pretty appealing. In Mornington Peninsula, every time that I went there, it was nice and green. Lots of wine. I was like, you're next to the water. It was just amazing experience. And I only knew. I only heard great things about 10 Minutes by Tractor, their culture and their wine list and their wine program and their wines overall. So, I took the leap and I joined 10 Minutes by Tractor, and at that moment I realized, we're working in a winery. We have to highlight the wines from 10 Minutes by Tractor, but we also need to break the mold, and that's where I went all in. And the commitment to give people the best experience with wine, with food, with service is everything I had in mind. And it obviously took a lot of hours from me. I was committed to my position and to the vision of 10 minutes by tractor, and I was working incredible hours, like 80 hours a week, without even looking at it. And I was starting with a small wine list, then we grew the wine list. We ended up growing the wine by the glass massively, and because we were on a set menu, we had 4 different wine pairings, and at some point you're looking at the room, you had 12 tables, everyone on the one pairing. Some people were vegetarian, so they had different set of wines. Some people were doing the 5-course, 8-course. So that room was filled with people drinking and eating. And that really taught me as well the skills of time management when you work on the floor. I mean, if I can answer that question on how I step up in the industry, I think it was all very organic, and it was based on the places I was working in and the people I was working with, but also with the product I was working with. So, when people ask me what inspires you, well, it's really about the context. It's really about what are we trying to achieve, and based on that, how far can we go? How many walls can we push to find greatness, and to find a way where it has never been done before? It's all this pursuit of of breaking the boundaries, if I may say.
Definitely. I want to highlight a couple of things that you've mentioned, because I think your outlook is quite unique in this industry. And one of the things you talked about was just, as you said, jumping around and doing a few different roles. But I think the most important thing, and the takeaway that I get from that, is that with each role that you took and with each location, you really looked for what you were getting out of it and the positives of where you were. Like you said, if it was at Felix and you perhaps didn't have a title as assistant sommelier or head sommelier, you knew that this was your opportunity to sell and look at great wines. And I just think your outlook is so positive. And the two things that I've always taken away from your service, one is that there is a true love of wine, and it is so palpable. You can see how much you love wine across all the board from all the different places in the world. And the other thing is just your joy in service. You are joyful in service. You can tell that you enjoy moving around the floor quickly and having quick conversations and long conversations. And those two things make, for me, a really wonderful sommelier.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your words, Shanteh. And I guess I take an analogy where I'm the kind of person that wakes up in the morning, that wakes up with 0 coin, and as you have social interaction, you're getting richer and richer, and I get the fuel of my energy through the people and through the conversation. The wine is just a conveyor. It's a mean to achieve this, but like deeply inside, I love people, and I could spend the whole day talking to someone about everything and nothing. And I think that I'm the kind of person that likes to break the ice and likes to ask questions, and I'm very curious about people's life. And I think by being this way, you actually I don't know, like I get adrenaline when I have a restaurant full of people enjoying the experience overall, not just about wine, not just about food, but people that just come to your restaurant and suddenly you can see they're relaxing, they're enjoying it, they're talking to each other, they're talking to the next table. And when I see this, I get like excited, and I get like so much like energetic, and that gives me the fuel to really go harder and harder, and with the years passing by, you kind of not forget the product, but just take the product on the side and look it a bit more on the overall aspect of hospitality in general, and understand that it's a people's business,
Yeah, it sure is. And we're incredibly lucky to have you a part of this wonderful industry. I wanted to highlight as well the fact that you talked about being in a regional area, because I remember that time where going, where's Xavier? And then you popping up in Mornington and going, whoa. I mean, a lot of people, I think, that live in major cities would kind of think of moving to a regional area as a real sacrifice, in that they're not in, the hubbub and the CBD with high paying jobs. And yet it was so enriching for you, and you absolutely smashed it at 10 minutes by tractor. Everybody's head turned to what you were doing. And I also think, with a wonderful wine list like that, you're attracting a lot of winemakers down there that are desperate to go out and drink those kind of wines. What's your advice for somebody that perhaps is considering moving to a regional area for a job like that?
Well, I think first part is the reason why I'm a bit of a light-hearted person, and I tend to follow my intuition and my gut feel a lot more than my reasoning, and I think that money is one thing, but it's not all of it, and that's the drive of doing something different. I would think that a regional area is, for me, foreigner coming from France, I had to do it because it's another way for me to discover that beautiful country that is Australia. And you have to know what your purpose is. You have to understand, if you wanted to move in an area that is relatively quiet during the winter, very busy during summer, you need to understand why you want to move there, and you need to find your own purpose in life. And I think that once you have your purpose in life as a human being, and once you understand what your vision is as a professional in the industry, then you can be everywhere in the world. It doesn't matter, because whatever you believe in, whatever your core motto is, and whatever you want to be achieving, you will achieve anywhere. So I don't think it's all about regional versus city, but I do think that you still need to weight a little bit the pros and cons of living in such areas, because the social interaction are a lot less intense, and it's a bit more of a quieter lifestyle. And I think for me, the way I mitigated that is I actually gave 150% of myself to the job that I was doing. I was pretty much living and breathing 10 minutes by tractor, and that's all I was doing in my life. And that comes with a lot of pros, such as reaching the goals that we've reached, but also cons is you losing a bit about yourself in the moment, and by committing your whole yourself to your job, you kind of sometimes you wonder who you are as a human being, because you've lost touch with the other side of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that, like you said, weighing up pros and cons is really something that we need to do in all of these big decisions we make. But I think in particular, like you said, there's so much that Australia can give you all around the country, and it is a beautiful chance to experience something like that. And like you said, for all of us that sell wine, we're inspired by these places where they grow, and so to get out there and to live in a region and understand the people and the times and the seasons, and I just think it's an amazing way to do it, and I encourage more people to do it. And I think that was a wonderful move on your part, and it's obviously enriched your career very much so. But let's talk a little bit about where you're at now, and Circl Wine House. It is an incredible list. You've done an amazing job, and since I visited, I was remarkably just impressed by yourself and also the work that you've done there. What's the philosophy behind Circl, and what are your goals for your time there?
All right, so I must say, I think the original aspect was, for many years now, I kind of like with where we are nowadays with the world of wine, I've always been quite not upset, but just a little bit annoyed with the world of fine wine and the elitism that surrounding this big category of wine, and I think the idea of Circl, pure vision, the pure purpose is to empower people to have access to these wines, and have access to these wines through what we're doing, but also through the pricing that we're offering. So the whole idea is to allow Melbourneian, Australian to drink those wines in a real casual environment, and at a price that is not, you don't have to sell your house for it. So the way we broke it down, really, it's actually all the rare wines, all the allocation wine only available by the glass, which will give us the opportunity to reach out to a broader audience, and also by breaking down those wines by the glass, you're actually making it more accessible from a monetary perspective to people, and I mean, we all know those big spenders in Sydney, in Melbourne, but there are a lot of people out there that we don't know that have, the cash to spend, but they're not necessarily been given the opportunity to do so. And we want to be able to capture those people into Circl and tell them, like, come with us. We'll give you the opportunity to be a part of this world, and even for the people that don't really know their wines, but they're seeing those wines on Instagram or on the paper or, in auctions, and suddenly they see it on the wine list and they're like, oh my God, I have never tried that before. I want to have a glass of this, and that's the whole idea of, giving is receiving. You give a lot. We give everything to our customers. We're not hiding anything. We're not being, money driven or ego driven. It's like, it's all for you. It's all there. It's up for grab, and I think that's the pure philosophy of the wine list, and the way of we've wrote the wine list as well is, there's 1,500 references on the wine list, so it's a massive book, and instead of listing just wines and just have that, we actually break it down by giving people a bit of context. So we giving the name of the winemaker. If you're in Champagne, we are writing down the disgorgement date, the grape variety, where it's from. If you're in Burgundy, we write down the amount of hectare that the winemaker owns on that specific vineyard, the altitude, and throughout the whole wine list, you have those sort of USP, which to me are quite important for the guests, because it gives them the opportunity to actually read the wine list as if it was a story, but also giving them the opportunity to make a choice without really the need of a sommelier if they wanted. And I know that there are a lot of guests that love talking to sommelier, and we're all here for that. But there are also some people that can be a little bit intimidated by the word of sommelier, and in this case, it's good to be able to educate people without being patronizing, and it goes in all different ways. And one of the way we've done it is through the wine list and giving people the sort of context, if that makes sense. And then on the food side, it's incredible because we're very lucky to have Elias Salomonson and Claire Bryce at the helm of the kitchen. Those guys, worked at amazing restaurants like Vue du Monde, and they've created a menu that is accessible, not really expensive, and ultra delicious. And all the flavors, the texture, the sauces, conducive to wine pairing as well. The philosophy behind Elias' menu is to have different level of flavors and textures and proteins and vegetables, so that it's easy to pair with wine. Sometimes chef likes to work with a lot of fermented things, which can be quite hard for a sommelier to work with. At Circl, it's definitely not the case. We are quite traditional with the flavor, but focusing on Australia for the most part.
I love that, and I think it's immediate that your desire to make wine accessible, despite the fact that you have so many bins and that the wine list is so big. And I love what you said about the intimidation factor of inviting a sommelier over to your table. I think for a lot of people, their thought is that they might be, upsold to a bottle they can't afford, or taken down a path, perhaps of the sommelier's palate, and it's not going to be what they want. And some people just like to dine and be left alone, which I totally appreciate. And I think that, like you said, you've created a list, for example, some of your wine flights, which is perhaps, a deep dive into Chenin Blanc across the country and 3 examples of them from different climates. And somebody can read that page quite simply, order that, and have a real experience for themselves without being told what they should be tasting or where they should drink from next, or even, perhaps descriptors. They can come up with their own kind of journey and experience through that. And I think that's really special. And through that, perhaps that trust of, wait, this was a really great experience and I had a great time, I want to do something else. That, might then build trust with deciding to invite someone like yourself over and have a bit more of engagement and communication.
Yeah, and I mean, so the Wine by the Glass program at Circl is broken down into different sections. So you're talking about the wine flight, and that's something that came up pretty early at the stage of writing the wine list, and there is multiple facets to that. I think one of the main thing is allowing people to get into the world of wine tasting as we do as sommelier, when I was at 10 Minutes by Tractor doing wine pairing, I would be doing a lot of different flights like this, like Magnum, Jeroboam, different wine, different producer, same vintage, and all sort of things. And that allows people to compare and contrast and really get into that specific theme. And I think that's some people like to learn on their own terms, and there is nothing better for someone to just put the nose into the glass and decide and realize what are the difference between those wines. And I think that it's all very subjective. So it's always great to give people the opportunity to think on their own term. And then if they need help, if they need, more information, we are here for that. But so that's the flight also give us the opportunity to sell some of those really rare wines. So for example, at the moment, we're pouring Ravenot versus Dovisa, which are two of the greatest producers in Chablis. We're using the same vintage and same vineyard, which gives people the opportunity again to see by themselves who is the best or whatever it is, and that's across all the flights that we're doing. Right? Then on the wine by the glass, we also have what we call our rare wine by the glass. So the idea is to take the rarest one we have in our collection and releasing them slowly but surely. And we release one bottle every week, and it's limited to 75 mils per person, which is pretty awesome because people want to try those wines. So in February, for example, we'll be doing a month with Coche Dury, which is a lovely producer in Meursault. The following month, it's going to be Domaine Rouleau. We will highlight different cuvées from the producer. In April, will be Domaine Dujac. So this is really the top tier wines, which is the commitment of Circl to our guests, but also to the industry and to our supplier, is that yes, we are going to do to do the great things with these wines. So you can trust us because this one will be exposed to as many people as possible. And then you have the rest of the wine by the glass, which is the way I edited it on the wine list is almost like a wine by the bottle selection. So it's divided by categories, and in each category you'll have different subcategories. So, for example, we're doing a lot of highlight on the Australian alternative grape varietals, and in which case we break it down to cool climate versus warm climate, which gives people the opportunity to try something that is relatively important in the world of wine in Australia at the moment with climate change and all the issues that the winemakers are encountering. And it also gives the opportunity for people that don't want to spend money on wine to still have a great experience with wine, as opposed to choose a non-expensive option to a specific grape variety, which I think for me doesn't work for me as a sommelier, and definitely doesn't work in the context of Circl Wine House. Then you have, also, focus on different grape varieties. So we're doing Chenin Blanc with different examples from all over the world, and we're offering different pouring size, which gives the opportunity for people to create their own flights, or to otherwise try 10 different wines in their time with us. And that's pretty much across the entire wine by the glass. So we do have roughly 150 wines by the glass at the moment. So yeah.
Well, this really should be sponsored by Coravan. We'll put that out there right now. Xavier, I think you're doing wonderful things. I think, it's a real credit that Circl Wine House, is doing so well, and people are talking about it as such a new operation as well. I do want to know a little bit about your palate. So tell me, if you could only drink 3 beverages for the rest of your life, what would they be and why?
Oh my gosh. So I think, as you grow in the world of wine, your taste changing. Right now at the moment, I'm obsessed with champagne. I'm like, I couldn't get enough of champagne, especially with the emergence of small growers, like creating incredible wine. I mean, nowadays, you put your nose in a glass of champagne, you got so much complexity, and especially when you're comparing the price you're paying for champagne versus Burgundy or some of the most iconic region in the world, it actually offers a lot of value, because you ended up with a wine that I've seen a lot of different aging process, and with grapes that are getting riper and riper, which produce a more aromatic style of champagne. And you have so many different styles of champagne, from your oxidative style to your non-oxidative style to your rosé, your blanc de blanc. Within the blanc de blanc, you're gonna have those lean and austere wines, and you're gonna have those big, rich, like monster, Chardonnay based champagne, and then you have your Pinot Noir base, which tend to be a little bit more vinous. And I mean, it's there's so many different options in drinking champagne that you could spend the next 10 years still discovering new wines in champagne, which is pretty awesome. And I'd say the second beverage probably would be beer, at the end of a long shift, when you had tried so many different wines, I think a good fresh beer, it's what makes of a good end of the night. But I think in France we don't really have too much of a culture of beer, and I've really learned that way through London and Australia, and I actually love beers. So that's good. Not really good for lavendels, but great for the thirst quencher. So that's good. Third one, like, I'm gonna be extremely basic, but a good Negroni. Yeah, like simple good Negroni. To start the evening, and I'm pretty classic with my type of drinking.
I love it. You've got something at all different price points, and like you said, something for all different weathers and times, and so very well rounded, I would say, which says quite a lot about you. Xavier, thank you so much for joining me. I could talk to you all day, and congratulations on where you've placed yourself, and how well Circl is doing. We wait with bated breath to see what you do next, and it's always such a pleasure to have a chat with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Shanteh. Can I just say something quickly?
Yes, go for it.
I just would like to add something. I think we're seeing a lot of a young sommelier nowadays coming to the industry, and it's amazing. And we're seeing a role of generation now. I would just say to everyone that starting their career and pursuing the world of wine is, please find your why. You need to find your why. Why are you in this industry? What do you want to achieve? What is your main driving momentum that you want to build? I love sommelier that have big passion for what they're doing, whether it's people, whether it's wine, whether it's food. passion drives really everything that we do. And the energy, the energy is the opportunity for you to convey the passion that you have for what you're doing, and I'm glad to see in Australia so many people out there that are trying to break the molds as well. And I mean, like what was 10 years ago the norm, now we need to redefine the new norms. And I'm glad to see, lots of people around, serving amazing wines on the wine list and the wine by the glass. And I can only wish that to become the norm across the whole industry, and I would like to thank everyone that allowed me to be who I am today, and all the mentors that I got along the way, and a big shout out to the owners of Circl as well, which who allowed me to make this space pretty much mine. And I definitely wouldn't be there without all of these people.
Well, it's very well said. And like you said, it takes a village. So thank you, Xavier. I hope our paths cross soon. And in the meantime, drink well. Cheers to you.
Thanks, Shanteh. Bye.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram @overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.